Welcome to the F3 podcast,
where we talk food, football, and fantasy football.
Welcome back to a new episode and a new season.
There it is.
Of the F3 podcast, where we talk about
football,
food,
and fantasy football.
Yeah, that's right. Well, Erin, let's raise a glass because the two of us have been busy.
We absolutely have.
Since we returned back from the Super Bowl.
Yes.
We have done several other trips. We've crossed the country.
Yes.
We made a beautiful trip out to Moncton, New Brunswick, which was most spectacular.
And the rest of Atlantic Canada.
And then we landed in Moncton and toured off, did PEI, and we ended up getting some brandy. So I just want to say cheers and a little happy birthday to you as we start this new season of the F3 podcast.
Cheers. A very nice beverage of choice, I have to say.
Beautiful. And because we talk about food, I thought we'd start off before we get into the good stuff and just talk about like what great
food. Didn't we just drink some of the good stuff?
We just had the good stuff.
There it is.
Right? We got that at a distillery in PEI. It was just incredible. We had such an amazing tour, especially we were hanging out with the Culinary Federation of Canada.
That's right.
Even got to hang out with a bunch of the American chefs came up to this event.
Right. Yeah.
So it was really great. And so I thought, starting with that, we need to look back at what we did because I know you're going to want to get into a few things, but we were able to cover and talk to about a lot of football teams over the last little while.
Yeah, I'll talk about a lot of football teams in our basically first year of the podcast, which was really great. And also we were able to kind of take our podcast a little bit on the road, which was probably one of the highlights for me, to be completely honest.
Yes.
I mean, Super Bowl, we were very fortunate to go to in New Orleans. And so that was a highlight just in and of itself. But the fact that we were able to take our podcast there on the road and chatted with some pretty interesting people while we were there and created a couple of episodes around it, to be honest. But one in particular really stands out for me.
Oh, we had a great time with Mark Bologna.
Yes.
From the, what was it? Beyond Bourbon Street.
Beyond Bourbon Street.
Which, if you're looking into learning about NOLA, as now I call it, instead of New Orleans.
New Orleans.
New Orleans. That's a great podcast to listen to about what's happening in that area and just about the community and the things that are just outside the strip, the things that are just making it, not out of that French Quarter area.
And I think for him, like we connected online previously to going down to Radio Row at the Super Bowl. And for me, it was really interesting because he's born and bred in New Orleans. Not only does he have this really amazing podcast that's, really stood the length of time. I think he said he's had it for over a decade. But the fact that his family, he grew up in the restaurant industry. His family had a restaurant and they served traditional po' boys and a bunch of very traditional New Orleans food, and the restaurant was unfortunately destroyed by Hurricane Katrina. And so in that episode, just to kind of circle back to that particular episode, it was really neat because he talked about his family, he talked about growing up in a restaurant, talked about some classic New Orleans dishes, what makes that so interesting and that area is so unique. And of course, we brought it back to football.
That's right. And that's what we want to do. We want to be able to combine both of our two favorite things, food and football, right?
And so that was a highlight for the past year for me, for sure.
And we've had so many great teams that we talked about and talked about the dishes from their community, from the Washington Commanders, the Los Angeles Rams, the Seahawks, the Raiders. We've had the Buffalo Bills, the Broncos, the Minnesota Vikings. I'm going to skip one here, but we'll go. Of course, we talked about the New Orleans Saints, of course, Miami Dolphins. And then we want to reach back to this one because this is going full circle for us because we talked about the San Francisco 49ers.
Yes.
And we don't want to just talk about 49ers, but we want to talk what's happening in San Francisco this year.
So there might be a little event, something on really small scale, like, I don't know, the 50th Super Bowl coming back to San Francisco, back to Levi Stadium this February. And, just is kind of timely too, because the New Heights podcast, the very famous Kelsey Brothers podcast, obviously just dropped a few days ago with Miss Taylor Swift on there and Swifties around the world, as they normally do, with her Easter eggs, which she's very, very well known for, may have dropped a few hints in that podcast, which some people are speculating indicated through some Easter eggs that she may be the next Super Bowl halftime show performer.
You know what? If that's the halftime show, it's going to be even more spectacular than last year,
It's going to
right?
be really interesting because one of the things, as I'm not a huge Swiftie, I absolutely respect her and what she's done. One of the things I really find interesting, though, is that the demographic that she's brought to the game in these past maybe year and a half since she started dating Travis Kelce, and she's brought a ton of Swifties to the game. Obviously, from a marketing standpoint, the NFL is just absolutely loving that, but it's really introduced a new demographic to the game. So I think, if she is going to be the halftime performer, I think it would be really neat because you're going to get your typical NFL guys, you're going to get your typical sports people, you're going to get your football people, but then you're also going to get a bunch of Swifties tuning in for the halftime show and hopefully watching the remainder of the game. So, if that is the case, it will be very interesting.
And I hope we can bring some Canadians
Likewise.
down there, right? And really showcase, what we love about the sport and talk about the food of the area and just get into all the great things that come with not just watching the game, which is one of the most exciting things to watch, but actually the whole environment, the whole feeling.
The spectacle of
everything, the touches, the tastes, the flavors, the energy of the area.
Yes.
That's what we're looking about talking about.
So when you think of San Francisco, just a side note, I know we did an episode around it, but to refresh your memory, what's like a good food association with San Francisco?
Oh my God, I can't let everything go right now because I think we're gonna have to revisit that and talk
we said
about
clam chowder. Why do I have a feeling? Yeah,
we did talk about a couple things like that, but maybe that's one you just got to come back and re-listen to a couple of our old episodes and check out what's happening with the F3 podcast because.
I always think, speaking of Taylor Swift Easter eggs, she mentioned sourdough a heck of a lot of times throughout that podcast. And Sourdough Sam is the 49ers mascot. And hey, can't go wrong with a bowl of sourdough with clam chowder inside, right?
That's right. A nice seafood chowder in there is always a winner for sure.
Yeah.
And, there's lots of those things happening. Of course. Yes. We're going to touch a little bit too coming up here because we always like to talk about one of my favorite things because I've been spending a lot of time this summer watching a good old BC Lions in the CFL.
You are. I know for our viewers online, you are clearly decked out in BC Lions gear.
Cheers to that.
Apparently I missed that memo or else I would have been donning my very best Matt Dunnigan Blue Bombers jersey or even a Seahawks jersey would have been great.
It would have been good.
I would have loved to stick with a bit of Blue Bombers gear. Would have been really nice.
I may have hid that on you.
Yeah, I noticed. That's great. Thank you very much. Yeah. But for the record, just bringing this back again, full circle, because I can mention more Bombers in this podcast. Speaking of, famous people and bombers, and the New Heights podcast. I think that's a really cool connection. I know that this podcast is primarily NFL, and we talk a lot, but we do talk some Canadian Football League as well.
There's some cool things about the CFL cool out there. Yeah. I may feel like it's sometimes a better game.
I don't disagree with
in
you.
In moments of that, but let's get real. The talent is definitely...
It's a different level, but also it's a different game, 100%.
Completely, 100%.
And I think one of the biggest things is exposure, right? And I think that's a big part. I mean, with such a limited amount of teams and, of course, limited population of Canada, you can only, go so far, I suppose, might be the right way of putting it. So anytime the CFL gets a little bit of publicity, I'm definitely not afraid to shout that out and bring that to everyone's attention. And I think one of the coolest things we were talking about the New Heights podcast was just the connection between the Kelce brothers and the Winnipeg quarterback, Zach Collaros. All of them they were roommates at and played football together at the University of Cincinnati. And they know each other very well, so much so that I think it was not that long ago, a few episodes ago, on the podcast that Mr. Travis Kelce wore a Zach Collaros jersey very proudly representing the Bombers. And it was, I can't remember if not this season, but the previous season, it was at a playoff game where they were in, and I remember it might have been at Arrowhead Stadium to be, I think it actually was. And Taylor Swift was there, and Mr. Zach Collaros was sitting one row behind, and that was all over TSN. And, normally everybody's freaking out about Taylor Swift is in the building, but, she was there. But, oh, by the way, the Winnipeg quarterback, Zach Claris, is also there. So it was pretty funny to see.
There's a chance when you've got a Winnipeg Blue Bomber quarterback sitting in the back that everyone notices.
At an NFL playoff game, sitting in the suite one row up from Taylor Swift, that's the bigger news story.
There was one thing Winnipeggers are going to point out if they see that for sure.
Yeah.
I get
Taylor
it.
who?
This is Winnipeg.
This is Winnipeg. That's what we got going on. But I'm looking forward to a huge. So we've got the new NFL season coming up. We're kind of right in the middle of the preseason games. We've got 2 more weeks of preseason before we go right into it. Fantasy football leagues heating up right now. We've got our draft coming up.
Well, there's the thing. Let's get into a little bit about that. The draft is starting to heat up because I'm starting to see some emails come into your inbox.
Yeah, and they're not necessarily ones that I can repeat on air.
I wouldn't say that I'm checking your email, but I'm just hearing you're like, oh my God, I got another email from these guys. And this is very vulgar.
Probably not worth repeating on here if we want to maintain some sort of semblance of an audience. But I know that it's coming up for a lot of people, right? This is pure fantasy football season right now. So everybody's kind of looking. I'm getting daily tips and checking all my receivers and tight ends and quarterbacks and going through the list. So we'll be chatting about that coming up in the next couple of weeks for sure.
I know. I'm pretty excited about it. And you know what? My daughter was getting into me about it a little bit this weekend. Because I took her to her first BC Lions game that she's ever been to in BC Place. Anyways, but yeah, we got into the stadium there and we got going and I was like, how many football games have you watched? She's like, look, I got this down. I won my fantasy football league last year. So
was it on auto draft?
No, she picked her own team. She picked her players. She was all over it. So she is ready for it this year.
There you go.
And she has more stats than I know about players right now in the NFL. So I'm kind of excited about that.
Yeah, and I know you enjoy watching me draft.
Yeah.
There's some words that come out screaming at the computer.
And there's lots of stress. It's honestly probably something I should film, but I don't think you would talk to me afterwards.
Probably not, no. But I know that is definitely coming up for a lot of people. Plus, the start of the NFL season.
That's right. It's going to be some big, exciting times there. Yeah, I think there's definitely a different atmosphere in the world, especially in the United States. And we're just going to see how that plays over to everything.
It's going to be very interesting. Absolutely. And, there's a couple of international games. I believe there's one in Brazil and then I think one in Germany coming up this year, as the NFL normally does. So there's that to look forward to. And it'll be a really interesting season.
Wow. I'm excited for it. And I'm also excited for the food creations I get to come up with.
Absolutely.
Or get to find out about from all these amazing regions.
Yeah. I've kind of got a couple ideas, but I won't mention them yet.
That sounds great.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you so much for listening to the F3 podcast. Don't forget, you can get in contact with us with all sorts of ways. And I know you can definitely check out Erin on TikTok. She's got a bunch of stuff coming up on there, as well as we got other avenues coming out there. Don't forget to follow us on all your major podcasting streams. And
we're looking forward to starting the NFL season with everyone.
All right. Cheers. A little more brandy.
Cheers. That sounds good.